Right, everyone, time to find out all about Celtic's latest signing, Alistair Johnston. And we've got a familiar face joining us back on the channel. It's only Larry Henry Jr., who works for SBI Soccer, among others, covering the US national team, Americans abroad, all of that kind of thing. You will hopefully remember that we spoke to Larry just over a year ago about Cameron Carter-Vickers. I think he just signed for Celtic at that stage, Larry. That's gone pretty well. I guess if Alistair Johnston is half as good as CCV, then we're on to a bit of a winner.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Good to see you. Thanks for having me again, as always. Glad to be with you. Obviously Carter Vickers has been a great hit for the club, and I think Alistair Johnson is just another good talent. Obviously, good age, 24 years old, and coming into his own of late in MLS with CF Montreal last season, new high in goals and assists, and obviously just recently playing with Canada at the World Cup in Qatar. So obviously a lot of experience there. So I think it'd be a great fit for the club and what they want to achieve.
Right, we'll come on to Alistair Johnston in a wee minute. That's obviously what this video is about. But before then, I simply have to ask you, why the hell is Cameron Carter-Vickers not getting more game time for the US national team? Is this being spoken about in America, or are we just biased as Celtic fans?
No, definitely. No, you're right. I think there's a lot of fans that are wondering how Cameron Carter Vickers hasn't played much more under Greg Berhalter. We did see him against Iran in that must-win game in the group stage. Berhalter had said he played that game mainly too because he plays for Celtic, and Celtic is a team that obviously dominates possession, dominates the chances in the Premiership. So teams bunker down against them, and obviously you see him every week. He's passing the ball 90 times, 100 times a game, trying to break the lines a little bit. So yeah, it's still kind of maybe discouraging that he hasn't played more. There's a lot of center backs obviously in the pool. Tim Ream I thought had a really good World Cup for them, veteran guy with Fulham, and Walker Zimmerman maybe the next guy to kind of take that route. So, but there's so many guys in the mix, so I think it's tough to say. But I'm really hoping that obviously 2023 now, as we start gearing up towards 2026 with the World Cup coming to the U.S. and Mexico and Canada, hopefully Carter Vickers can kind of stamp his foot onto a starting spot because there's just more and more young talent coming through the pipeline.
Yeah, it's a really exciting team, and I think Carter Vickers should be part of that. I mean, I think he's a terrific defender, and hopefully, I mean, I doubt he'll still be at Celtic in 2026. I really hope he is. But if he can be part of that US national team for a home World Cup, that will be exceptional. It's also a home World Cup for Canada. And that's what we're talking about today. Well, we're talking about Alistair Johnston, who was obviously part of the Canadian World Cup team. Played every game, I think. They didn't get a point, but I would say their performances deserved more than that. I thought they were pretty impressive and a breath of fresh air whenever I watched them. You've seen a fair bit of Alistair Johnston, even though he's Canadian. You've tweeted a lot about him as well, I think I'm right in saying. So he's clearly someone you're aware of. What can you tell us about Alistair Johnston?
That he's really hardworking fullback. Mainly plays on the right side. So curious to see kind of how he comes right into the mix at Celtic because obviously I know you guys have a couple right backs on the roster. One still in the World Cup. Juranovic with Croatia, but Johnston I think has really started to come again into his own with in MLS. He started out with Nashville in 2020, 2021. Was able to jump right into the starting squad there, and then gets the move to Montreal, which was an exciting project for sure. One of the best teams in MLS this season during the regular season. And now he's one of a few players now that have since transferred out of the club. Jordi Mahajovic, the U.S. guy, U.S. midfielder, has since been transferred out. And then Ismail Kone, who just recently today just got transferred out to Watford. So Johnston's the latest in that list of young talent, but really good with both feet. Willing to get upfield, get get service into the box. Like I said, had 5 assists this season in 33 league games for Montreal, 4 goals. So he isn't afraid to shoot as well. I know Celtic fans will be excited about that, but yeah, I think he's a real hardworking guy. 30 caps for Canada, one of their more experienced guys in this new group, and again, I think will fit really nicely with the mold at Celtic Park because obviously I know you guys like to score goals. You score pretty frequently in the league, and now with no European competitions though, now it's all about the obviously the league title and getting a couple domestic cups as well.
Yeah. So he's recently turned 24. I think you touched on this, but it's quite a sharp rise in recent years. You go back to only 2019, so what, 3 years ago, and he's still playing for a team called Vaughan Azzurri, who I did a bit of digging. I didn't know this offhand. Are a lower league semi-pro side in Canada. As you say, he then joined the MLS with Nashville SC before moving quickly on to CF Montreal and then quickly on to Celtic after that. So not too dissimilar from the kind of path that Josip Juranovic has actually had, because I think he spent only 1 year at Legia Warsaw, came to Celtic, and it seems like he's going to move on from Celtic after less than 2 seasons. So maybe there's similarities there in terms of, real sharp, quick rises in their careers. When did you first see or hear about Alistair Johnston?
Yeah, probably more so. I remember him breaking obviously onto the scene with Nashville, and with Nashville being an expansion team at that time. It was curious to see. When you're trying to do the digging on a lot of the players, like you said, obviously not a household name before he made the move to MLS, and he was able to really get join the league and get adjusted very quickly. MLS is not an easy league to get adjusted to. Obviously, we've seen that from some of the big name guys that come over from Europe. And I thought Johnston handled himself very well. Jumped right into the Nashville team. His appearances he played more in 2021, and then was traded to Montreal, and had over 2,500 minutes played, most goals he's had, most appearances and assists. So I remember seeing him break on with Nashville. Really aggressive defender. I really like his ability. 1v1 and shutting down opposing wingers, and then his versatility as well. He likes to get upfield, like I said, get crosses into the box, gel with his attacking teammates. And then two, if they did have to play like a back three, he could kind of slide in as a wing back or even as a third center back on the right side. So he has that versatility there if Celtic decide to go that route. But I think you're going to see him on that right side bombing down the field. And definitely with Canada, I know he's an exciting talent because, like you touched on, Canada I thought deserved more out of the World Cup. They have a lot of great young talents, and will be eager for that 2026 World Cup, knowing that they're going to have maybe a game or two on home soil.
Yeah. You mentioned that Montreal have sold a number of players this summer for big money. Was Johnson someone you always felt was going to move on, even regardless of him playing at the World Cup?
I thought he would move on. I didn't think exactly think maybe it would be this year because he only had played that 1 year with Montreal. Obviously being Canadian too, probably representing that club, historic club in the league. So I was pretty shocked to see him go as early as he did to Scotland. But I think again, he's probably at one of the better periods of his career now, where he's had 3 years of MLS under his belt. He has over 30 caps with Canada, played in some big time games now at the World Cup, and I think would it's just again not only the most recent CF Montreal player to make the move, but also probably one of several Canadians that are going to be making the move to Europe, and I think it's rightfully deserved because you need that first step in Europe to get to those dreams, whatever your dreams may be, and I think Celtic again is obviously we know the history of the club and how well they've done with other players, whether it's not specifically Canadian, but with the U.S. guys. Timmy Weah was there. Carter Vickers has really hit the ground running, become a fan favorite there at the club, and I think Johnson, with his work rate, will do the same.
So just kind of going off on a tangent briefly in terms of the Canadian players, what has gone different in that country to produce all these players? Because we all know about Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David. Is it a case of those guys being the trailblazers for players like Johnston?
No, I think it's a mixture of both. Obviously, you're a young player. You see Alphonso Davies and what he was able to do in MLS, and then just kind of shows you, if you have the talent, you can get a chance overseas. And he's obviously taken that, with Bayern Munich and maybe down the road, maybe even a bigger club. Whether it's like a Real Madrid or somewhere even like that. Because he's still fairly young. But I think too, it also has to do with the great job that Canada Soccer has done as a federation. Because John, not very often you see you know head coaches come into the national team set up with a lot of maybe women's national team experience. But John Herdman has led the Canada women to a World Cup, and now has done that with the men's, and I think has maybe overcome some early adversity in his time as the coach, and given chances to a lot of players, whether it's continuing to rely on some of the veteran guys on the team, but then also sprinkling in a lot of the young guys. I think the U.S. national team is kind of in that same boat, right? So yeah, when you see Davies, you see David, you see Buchanan, a few of those guys, Davies and Buchanan have used MLS as the springboard, and now they're overseas. Buchanan obviously already linked with maybe a move away from Club Brugge, whether it's somewhere bigger. Uh, like I said, Ismail Kone is another one. Played one season with Montreal this past season, and now gets a move to Watford in the championship, right into the promotion race. So I think it's a huge testament to obviously what Canada, the federation, has done, and obviously John Herdman as well, the coach. But then also they have a really good, I think, good group of guys that are willing to work hard for the country, and show that it's not just a country all about women's soccer or about hockey. They can play some proper soccer as well on the men's side.
Yeah. So Alistair Johnston, the first Canadian male player to play for Celtic, I believe. We do have Clarissa Larisey on the women's side. She's an international as well for Canada. Just going back to Johnson, Celtic fans will have seen him play at the World Cup. Certainly the second game, I think, was the big one against Croatia when he was going up against Josip Juranovic. From my viewing, just to throw my thoughts in there, I thought he looked a neat player, capable of good switches of play, really good passing, strong running, as well as being pretty good defensively. Had a couple of really good tackles in that game, not afraid to get stuck in at all. But the big thing for me about him, and not even talking about his playing style, is the personality. I'm assuming you've seen the interview he did after signing, and he just looks totally buzzing to have signed for Celtic. He's tweeting about needing a new phone. He's Instagramming Celtic related merchandise, and he just seems like a genuinely likable guy that you would, even if he hadn't signed for Celtic, you would probably look at him and go, I want you to do well, because he seems like that kind of guy. Is he a likable guy that Celtic fans are going to take to?
Oh yeah, definitely. I remember, I think, interviewing him once or twice when he was with Nashville, when they came to Philadelphia and played the Union, or somewhere close by, and you hit it right on the head. He's a great guy. Obviously loves the sport, loves his opportunity, and I think again will fit the mold at Celtic, because he'll play. For the crest, play for the for the club, and obviously knows the amount of success they had. He probably knows, obviously, probably already looking at the league standings, and looking at the gap over Rangers, and obviously the domestic cups that can still be won. So, and it's an exciting project that's continued there, and I think again he'll just fit the mold nicely, because I think it's a great opportunity, and I think he'll take it with both hands, and reap the rewards from it.
He likes a tackle, doesn't he? I'm not wrong in saying that.
No, he likes to tackle. Yeah, I think when I look at his stats every game, that's his the thing you look at first, right? He just loves to tackle, loves to kind of shut down the opposing winger, and there's a lot of good ones in MLS for sure, especially in the Eastern Conference. And I thought he did outstanding this past season.
Does he ever struggle discipline wise, if he's getting torn into tackles? Does he get yellows, reds?
Not too much. I know he had one red card back in 2020. That was his debut MLS season with Nashville. But he only had two yellows that season. He had five yellows this past season in 33 games. So can play a little bit along the lines for sure. And then, but I don't think he gets baited into him too much. He's really good with the ball, and not only I think too defensively, but just his awareness on the field. Like his passing percentages got better over the last 3 years. He went from 79 to 85 in a span of 2 years. So he's just getting better all around the pitch. And I think, again, now that he has a new opportunity, definitely tougher for sure. But I think, again, he'll make the most of it. And, it's a great signing, I believe, for the club.
So you talk about that improvement. How much more improvement is there in him? I mean, is he a player who could be excelling at Champions League level?
No, I think so. Obviously, it's the first step, but he's had some experiences with Montreal in the Concacaf Champions League, and been able to play in some big games with that, and then World Cup qualifying. I think was huge. In Canada winning the qualifying group over Mexico and the U.S. So I think there's a whole nother level he can get to for sure. He's only 24. You have to. It's you kind of have to pinch yourself to think that this guy's only played 3 years in MLS, and he's already on the move to one of the biggest clubs in the world. So I think he can get to another level, maybe even double digit assists. He had 5 assists this past season. Really good passer, really good defensively, and we know Celtic, right? They're not going to concede a lot of goals with Carter Vickers and some other guys in the back. So I think again that that's going to be probably his first priority is helping the team keep clean sheets, and then go from there and maybe take his numbers up a little bit.
That's what he's good at. Any obvious weaknesses in his game from having watched him?
I just think maybe a little bit, is again like the fact that he has only played 3 MLS seasons, so maybe there are some things that he's still learning, but nothing that really pops out on the screen. He's really solid, really smooth. Really like you said, really hard runner and smart with the ball. So I think he'll still probably go through maybe a little bit of a growing pain when it first starts. Because it is obviously a jump to a bigger league and a bigger club, but I think again he'll just hit the ground running and probably has seen the success that Cameron Carter Vickers has had. I know he's not Canadian, but he probably has seen a lot of players, and you've seen it too. The amount of players that kind of hit the ground running at Celtic, enjoy the experiences, and then become like fan favorites for the club and consistent starters.
He name dropped Cameron Carter Vickers in that interview he did with Celtic TV, which I thought was interesting. I mean, I can't talk highly enough of that interview. I thought it was amazing to hear a footballer talk like that, because nowadays you know what it's like. You'll know probably better than me that you get stock answers from footballers. You very rarely get that kind of insight. He's talking about Victor Wanyama and the conversations that Victor Wanyama's had with him. He's talking about Cameron Carter Vickers, name dropping him, and I just really hope that stays the same way when he comes to Celtic. I hope he keeps talking like that, because I just love that. And I think he's really aware of what's happening as well. He strikes me as a kind of guy who loves football. He loves, maybe if he's not playing, he'll be watching football. And I think he's going to go into Celtic and know exactly what he's going into. He'll have spoken to Victor Wanyama about the club. Sure, there'll be an element of surprise, I guess, but I'm excited about this one, mate. I'm very excited. Any final things you want to get across? You'll be held to ransom for whatever you say for the rest of eternity.
No, man, I'm really excited for the guy. I think again we've seen the success that Carter Vickers has had, and then some others. Back in the seasons past, Timmy Weah. I remember Timmy Weah and obviously needed playing time when he was at PSG, and he goes to Celtic, and he really just loved the fan base, loved the club, loved the opportunity. I was kind of hoping he was able to stay there longer than he did, but he since has moved on. And so I think Johnston, and like you said too, the fact that he name dropped Carter Vickers, he knows what the club is about. He knows what the history in the club. He knows the guys that have played there. He played with Wanyama with Montreal, so I'm sure that he's coming in there with a little bit of, again, a little bit of a shock, but I'm sure he's ready to go and ready for the games to get rolling, because obviously the schedule kicks back off again in a few weeks.
Yeah, can't wait for it, Larry. Amazing to get your insight once again. You can check Larry out on Twitter for more good stuff. He's at lhenry019. So great stuff, Larry. Maybe we'll catch up again in a year's time when we're signing the next great MLS player. And until then, I'll say goodbye.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it, and hope Alistair's a smashing hit for the club.